What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we've got some brand spankin' new Destiny news to go over, including some pretty big Crucible changes that were previously unannounced. Now, this is because the Bungie weekly update has just been released. Usually this happens on a Thursday, however this one was delayed until today, Friday. So we do have a lot to go over. And guys, if you enjoy this content and enjoy being kept up to date with the latest Destiny news, please remember to support the video by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. It's a very simple thing to do, but it really does help me out, and I appreciate those of you who do it. Now, the first thing we're going to do is the first thing the Bungie Weekly Update does, and just kind of reiterates quickly the news that has happened for the past week. So, we got more news this week about the upcoming Age of Triumph Content Edition, the last Content Edition hitting Destiny March 28th. This week, there was yet another official Bungie livestream, this time detailing all of the changes to weekly activities. Just very quickly, there's going to be a featured raid playlist. There's also going to be a featured Challenge of the Elders playlist. It's basically the exact same thing as the Challenge of the Elders right now, with an increased light level and better rewards. There's also going to be Siva Heroic Strikes returning. The Nightfall Strikes are getting a new modifier in the form of Daybreak, essentially adding Mayhem PvP elements, so your abilities and super recharge way quicker. Those are being added into the Nightfall when this modifier is present, and that'll be once around every 4 weeks. And then we also got to take a look at weekly story missions. These are basically story missions with a much higher light level that have, again, better rewards. These are going to be replacing kind of the daily story missions. And then lastly, we have the weekly Crucible playlist. Now you notice some of the rewards for these playlists include the Treasure of Ages. This is the last mystery box microtransactionable item being introduced into Destiny. Essentially, it's a conglomeration of all the microtransactionable items that have come before it, and it has access to, a lot of the old armor, like Spectre armor. It's got access to old emotes, old ornaments, all of that stuff. So again, it's a goodie box from all across Destiny's history. Now, that is in short form what happened this week. If you want that information expanded, please watch this video that I did completely recapping the Bungie live stream. There'll be an annotation on screen right now. And so we move on into the new Destiny news. So, there has been a pretty big, or I should say there's going to be some pretty big Crucible changes, in the sense that, firstly, the Crucible directory is going to be pretty substantially cleaned out. So with the introduction of the Age of Triumph, the Crucible playlists are going to be cut down to only 5 featured playlists, with only one featured one up top and private matches on the bottom. Now, to illustrate this very simply, this is what the Crucible directory looks like right now, and this is what it's going to look like on a week that features Control, Supremacy, Elimination/Trials, Salvage, and Rumble. So much more clean, like much fewer options. And then this is like a little bit of a picture of what will happen if the featured playlists are Clash, Rift, Elimination/Trials, Skirmish, and Rumble Supremacy. So again, you just have those 5 main options. Now, this is obviously a little bit upsetting, I'm sure, to some players, because it quite literally does reduce your choice when deciding to play Crucible. So that is a little bit unfortunate. You'd like to have, in a perfect world, as much choice as possible. You get to do whatever you want to do. However, the big benefit of doing this is that matchmaking should be improved pretty much across the board. Because there's less choices, that means there's going to be less players doing more spread out activities. And that means there's going to be more players dedicated to these 5, featured playlists. And that means that with a higher player count, there's going to be naturally better matchmaking. So yes, you get to choose from less Crucible playlists, but you also should get a smoother time and better experiences within the remaining Crucible playlists. So that is actually a pretty decent change coming up soon. But there's even more changes to the Crucible Handler and Quartermaster, especially involving bounties. So first off, it was shown last week that Shaxx, instead of having one big 6v6 Crucible bounty, he will now have 2 of these big bounties, each pertaining to a featured Crucible playlist for that week. So one of the 5 now. So of course, just more chances to get rewards there. However, kind of the big news here is that the Crucible Quartermaster, with a little robot guy here, he's actually going to have weapon bounties back. So previously, I think it was for doing the big Crucible quest, he had bounties that had you get kills with auto rifles and pulse rifles or whatever. Those are being brought back and they're going to rotate every single week. So you're going to have a bunch more Crucible bounties to pick from. And the even better news is that these bounties apparently will drop. Now the wording is a little bit weird here and it doesn't explain it fully, but what it sounds like is that if you do like the pulse rifle bounty, you're going to get a PvP pulse rifle. And this PvP pulse rifle can be, and Bungie's quoted in saying, you'll have the opportunity to earn a variety of Crucible, Iron Banner, and Trials of Osiris weapons from year 2 and 3. What the heck? That's crazy. So you can earn old, like year 2 Iron Banner pulse rifles, like the Nerwin's Mercy, for example, for doing these Crucible Quartermaster bounties. At least that's what it sounds like. In which case, that would be insane. That's so awesome. And that's really increasing the amount of loot that's available right now, because it's impossible to get. It's impossible to get the old year 2 and even technically year 3 Iron Banner weapons. So I am very happy and excited about that. Bungie even does say, quote, and yes, there is a hand cannon bounty that can reward an Isoluna. So there you go. Again, that's further evidence for my theory. And again, that's just great news. Now moving on from there, we have some kind of interesting and weird news. And I say weird because it honestly seems like Bungie messed up something, that deleted something by accident, because after they say that Isoluna quote, the literally next sentence is, these bounties have also been updated and all of them are able to be completed daily while Trials of Osiris is active. Silver and gold tier bounties will now feature gear and weapons from year 3. It's kind of confusing. It's almost like they forgot to say, also, we've updated the Trials of Osiris bounties, because that would make sense in the fact that they're updating every day now, so you can just complete a lot more of them when Trials of Osiris is active. That would make a lot of sense. Alright, now moving on from the Crucible news, we have a little bit more PvE news, in the form of another Age of Triumph frequently asked questions. Now, the first question is really the most interesting to go over, because it actually details all of the different weekly story mode playlists, and here they are. So the question is, how will the weekly story playlist work? And the answer, each week, a curated playlist of Destiny story missions will be available to players. These playlists, very importantly, do not feature matchmaking. That's pretty damn unfortunate. I don't know why that isn't the case, but you're gonna have to either go in solo or get a team together. In any event, Fireteam requirements are 1 to 3 players with a recommended character light of 380. One of the following playlists will be featured each week with various modifiers. So here are the different playlists that can come. Firstly, you have Earth and Moon. These are original Destiny missions from the Earth or the Moon. Next, we have Mars and Venus. Again, original Destiny missions from Mars or Venus. Then we have Dark Champions. These are missions from Destiny the Dark Below and Destiny the House of Wolves. So the 2 first expansion missions, so that's going to be the Dark Champions playlist. Next up we have the Taken War, that of course is missions from the Taken King expansion. And lastly we have the Iron Lords, and that's missions from the Rise of Iron. So those are the different playlists, that's how the missions are broken up. Now moving on, the next question is, does completion of a weekly Nightfall strike grant the Radiant Light experience buff? And the answer is yes. With the Age of Triumph, players may earn the Radiant Light buff when completing a Nightfall strike for the first time per week per character. This grants increased reputation and experience gains throughout the following weekly reset. So whatever reason that was once removed, and it's coming back with the Age of Triumph, which is definitely good news. It means that you want to get your Nightfall done every week, the first time per week, because you're going to get better experience from everything else. So if you're a Crucible player who hasn't done the Nightfall in God knows how long, and now you're going to want to do it because completing Crucible matches and completing bounties and all that stuff, if you have that Nightfall bonus, you will get more experience than normal, more faction rep than normal. So definitely, that's a huge motivating factor to do the Nightfalls now, which is pretty awesome. And moving on, we have information about the next Bungie bounty, an event where if you match with or against a content creator and win with them or beat them, you get an exclusive emblem. And this is going to be actually today, March 17th, against Gigs, who is a big PvP guy. I actually got to talk with him on Say No to Rage's podcast, but the region is going to be California, 5 p.m. Pacific time, and the great news is he's playing on both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. He's going to do an hour on the Xbox One and an hour on the PlayStation 4, so both consoles are being featured. Thank goodness. I've been covering the Destiny news for God knows how long. I think this is the first time in 5+ weeks that Xbox One has shown up, which is insane. So thank goodness they finally picked someone who has access to both consoles. And of course the playlist is going to be Clash. So very good news there. Very good news for Xbox players. I know that they've been complaining about that for a very, very long time. And now we have a little bit of a look at what is going to happen next week, which of course is the last official live stream on the 22nd, detailing the loot that is coming with the Age of Triumph. So they're going to talk about how the armor is going to change and showing off some of the new armor, talking about how elemental primaries are perhaps coming back, and we got a little bit of a look at that today. So Deej says, and this is very, very interesting, he says, quote, "We also have some explaining to do about those elemental primaries that are staged to make a comeback." Now, Bungie, from what I've been paying attention to, which is pretty much everything, has been not necessarily confirming or denying the existence of elemental primaries. They've talked about, we are going to address elemental primaries, but this makes it sound like, well, it says, are staged to make a comeback. So it does sound, from this weekly update, that elemental primaries are coming back, that the Fatebringer, right, that the Vision of Confluence, all of that stuff is going to be elemental. They're going to come back. In which case, again, it is going to be very interesting to see how that is done, because if they just bring those guns back, they will quite literally take over PvE. Like, there's no reason to use a kinetic gun once you have an elemental gun. So I'm very interested to see what changes Bungie has in mind, if any, for elemental primaries. My idea would just be to introduce an item of loot that lets you apply an elemental burn to any weapon. So you could make your Amalgam Loop, Arc, or Solar, or Void, or whatever, and that would kind of make it so that you could still use amazing kinetic guns that you like right now and just apply burns to them to make them more viable, and make it so that not just the few raid elemental primaries get used well and above everything else in PvE. That would quite literally fix that issue, so I really hope Bungie does something like that. And so guys, that is it for today's new Destiny news. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny content similar to this and want to be kept up to date with the latest Destiny news, the best way is to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want to be notified of new uploads, be sure to press the bell beside subscribe. If you want another way of supporting the channel, official merch is finally here. There's a link to it in the description down below. And if you guys want to keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's also linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.